I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today. We are here with HX, Hurtigruten Expeditions, and we are here to talk about the Arctic. And it's my pleasure to start by turning it over to Tudor Morgan. Tudor, welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Lee, and welcome to HX, the new brand for Hurtigruten Expeditions. So if you haven't heard of us before, that's where we've come from 1896, when the company did its first expedition sailing to Svalbard. So a deep history with a few different names, but now HX. So welcome to this Arctic-focused webinar. I'm joined by my colleagues and good friends, Karen Strand and Verena Moraldi. As Lee said, my name's Tudor Morgan. I'm based in Wales in the UK, and I've been working in the polar regions for about 30 years, and with HX worked as an expedition guide, an expedition leader, and now based in the office running a computer, but plenty of experience to share. And I'd just like to ask Karen to introduce herself, please.
Oh, hello, everybody. Can't see you all, but we are very happy to be here with you. Yes, so my name is Karen Strand, and I've been working with these two lovely people for many, many years. Maybe the one who started before them, unfortunately. And so I've been with Jack's former Hurtigruten as well for about 23 years now, and done everything from Norwegian coast to being with the first expedition voyages we did in Antarctica. Expedition leader, chief purser, done it all. And now being in the office and doing development together with these two.
Brilliant. So, thank you. Thank you, Karen. And over to you, Verena.
Yes, thank you, Tudor. Hello, everybody. Again, like Karen says, we cannot see you all, but much welcome to this webinar. I started in Hurtigruten back in the days in 2007 as a lecturer on board our lovely NMS Nord-Norge, which was then replaced by Fram. And for the past 5 years, I have had the privilege to help develop the science and education program that you will all get to experience on board all of our ships, and of course, all of the trips in the Arctic. We will speak a little bit more about that in the coming minutes.
Thank you, Verena. So as just a small introduction to HX, we have a fleet of 5 vessels, 4 of which operate in the Arctic, and the other one is operating year-round in the Galápagos. So if you feel like you don't need the cold, then there's a hot water option or warm water option year-round in the Galápagos. So the aim is now we're going to go through destination by destination after I've given a small introduction about the company, and then Karen, Verena, and myself will introduce an individual destination. But a little bit about ourselves and our ships. Our ships have varied in size from 140 to 50 guests on MS Spitsbergen, Fram, about 220 guests in the Arctic, and then Amundsen and Nansen, hybrid, newest members of our fleet with around 500, maximum 500 guests. So these are all purpose-built expedition vessels, built for adventure, comfort, and also with sustainability in mind. And these are the core of what we do at HX. We look at our destinations and itineraries. These ships will take you to places that you can't get to in any other way. They're state-of-the-art. We build a number of activities and excursions based around each destination to really fit the journey for you. Onboard experience is all-inclusive, so you won't have to put your hand in the pocket, but there are some enhancements that you can make, like kayaking. You can spend some money in the well-equipped onboard shop, or on our bigger ships, go for a spa treatment to relax after a day's adventure. One of the questions we've had in the pre-webinar ask is about fitness levels. Our trips are for everyone, from families through to those older guests. But what we ask is you have an open mind and look at these destinations. We have an onboard team that will look after you throughout the experience, and we find the number of different activities that we can take. So we'll talk you through with some few slides as backdrop and as prompts for us to talk. So we'll be sharing those. So as I mentioned, our onboard experience is very much around education, or science and education. We have purpose-built areas for lectures. We have science centers with bone clones to explain the physiology of the species you'll see. We can see the microscopic world with our microscopes and explain things on screens, the underwater world through our underwater drones, as well as get you involved in citizen science projects where you are collecting the data and contributing to the scientific world. So there's the opportunities, many opportunities on board, as well as obviously in a lovely, comfortable, relaxed hotel where we make you feel at home and a very family feel. So there's no dress code, all very relaxed. With that, we really, in the Arctic, of course, one of the highlights of any expedition cruise to these remote regions are the wildlife. Across the Arctic, we have a very varied wildlife, from the weird and wonderful narwhal with its big tooth through to the white beluga whale, and of course the ice bear is a real highlight, and the weird and wonderful looking muskox with its incredible coat and a number of different seal species. So we will try and make the most of these experiences. Of course, we're not going to a zoo, but very much part of the expedition team will be there trying to share their experiences and share the wildlife with you. Also on board, we have a number of different activities. I mentioned kayaking before, something that people love to get that different experience from the water. Everywhere we go, we do a number of nature landings where we take you ashore, offer hiking, immersive experiences with the communities. We do a lot of small boat cruising where we just take you out on the water, get you up, I'll say relatively close, but safe distances to very interesting landscapes, whether it be bird cliffs, geology, ice fronts, but of course within safe distances. So there's a lot of activities that go on board, but we will now look at going through destination by destination. We'll start in Alaska in the west, and we will head east to have a bit of order to the presentation. So to do that, I will ask Verena to talk a little bit about Alaska and share what's the uniqueness and her experiences in Alaska.
Excellent. Thank you, Tudor. Well, most of you must know that Alaska is the largest state in the US, but it is also one of the least populated states in Alaska, which means that you will get to see vast expanses of lands, of wilderness, and this is very attractive. One other thing that is absolutely amazing in Alaska is that we have numerous native populations living there, like the Aleut, the Tlingit, or the Haida, just to mention a few, which contributes to a fascinating cultural richness of this state of Alaska. But in particular, what I love the most about Alaska is the temperate rainforest, which is depicted here in this picture. It's mostly composed of conifers like the Sitka spruce. It has a very large vegetation that is a consequence of the huge amounts of rain that fall in this region and moderate temperatures. So it is also covered by mosses and ferns and shrubs. So it's a real treat to walk in these forests. But also the glaciers. Can I have the next slide, please? The glaciers landscapes are breathtaking, and you can, for example, in the College Fjord, you see two glaciers, impressive glaciers pouring into the ocean, the Harvard and the Yale glaciers, and it is simply spectacular. With a bit of luck, we may also get the huge opportunity to see bears in their natural environment, as well as the emblematic bald eagle. So it's just an incredible amount of culture, landscape, and wildlife highlights that await you in Alaska.
I think one of the really fascinating things about what you just said is how you wouldn't really expect rainforest in Alaska. So that diversity of the green through to the glaciers. But I know, because I know what's coming. But share with us your favorite memory from Alaska.
Well, my favorite memory was one particular day when we were doing a small boat cruising in Icy Bay, and we had this sea fog coming and going. So we had this mystic atmosphere throughout the day where we would see the ice disappearing and appearing again, the weather was fabulous. So it's really this ability to experience ice from close and listen to the ice cracking as well from the boat when everything else is in silence. It's just amazing. But yeah, that is, I think, my best memory. But what about you, Tudor? Let's move a bit east now. Can you tell us a bit about the Northwest Passage?
Yeah, magic. Yeah, so the Northwest Passage, I think, is one of the most incredible voyages I've done, or I've been lucky enough to do. And it's really a long voyage. Very few people, very few ships or passenger ships have actually gone through the entire Northwest Passage. I think we're now in the 90s. So it's still under 100 ships that have gone through Northwest Passage, steeped in history of exploration, but also amazing cultural heritage. Pictured here are some of the local Inuit that really come alive and part of that cultural richness of these voyages, and showing you their culture through community packages when we're in each place is really important. But of course, as well as that, sailing through the Northwest Passage is the variability. We have sailings that go west to east and also east to west. And with that, the western side, the Alaska side, is Canadian, or the Yukon North Slope, through to the areas in the east where it gets a lot more fjord-like, and also a constant in the Arctic is ice conditions. So very challenging, and one of the reasons why so few ships have gone through is the ice. So there's a real variability in the landscape, also the wildlife and the ice, and also the communities. So that cultural aspect of these voyages, combined with the history and the landscape, really make them super special. Yeah, amazing.
And talking about favorite memories, what would be your favorite memory from one trip through the Northwest Passage, Tudor?
I'd say this is more sort of in the eastern Canadian Arctic archipelago. But one of the things, I started my polar career, if you like, in the Antarctic. And of course, the whales in the Antarctic come up and breach and feed. But one of the things in the Arctic is when the whales feed, you suddenly, just before they come up through the water, you get this whoosh, and you hear this noise of the fish, in this case, capelin, coming out of the water before the whales gobble them up. But that whole feeding and being able to watch the whales feed, the whales' breath as they breathe, and the swish of the capelin, yeah, magic. Could talk about it. Anyway, right, we'll continue our journey because the Arctic is vast and we've got a lot to get through. Karen, Greenland.
Yeah, Greenland, largest island in the world, and you kind of feel that when you have to choose the voyage to Greenland, because it has such a sort of breadth in it. So you could do a West Greenland voyage where you will have more communities and where most of the population of about 58,000 people actually live. Or you can go here, which you can see on this lovely picture, which is in the national park, or Scoresby Sound. Scoresby Sound being the largest fjord system in the world, actually. And then this is taken a little bit further north, where less than 10,000 people have actually seen Northeast Greenland National Park in modern times. So, and one of the very few places on the planet, besides where we're going to go next as well, probably in Svalbard, where you can see very little vegetation in the landscape, but that gives you the geology bare, raw, right there in the open. So you can sort of see millions and billions of years of the planet's evolution right there at the surface, which I think is, and then you have the ice scape in Greenland, which is absolutely not parallel to anything else. Antarctica might have some of the same shapes, but what it doesn't have is that landscape in the background. So you don't have those deep fjords and you have greens next to the ice. It has a very, very magic feel to it when you have that combination.
That's pretty magic. And I think, you mentioned, getting to places that very few people have been and that we're very lucky to go to. And as I mentioned at the start, being able to immerse you and educate you in these areas in things is really important. And I love that you were talking about geology, because I study geology. So I love that. That's rubbed off on you. Yeah. Okay. So
you have rubbed off to me.
yeah. So one of the things that we sail on the seas. 2/3 of the surface of the planet is covered in water, and one of the things we do quite a bit of is look under the water. And one of the special things that we do see, or not just in Greenland, but this is just happens that these pictures are from Greenland. And I'll ask Verena to talk about this.
Yeah, this was one landing. We arrived at port, and a colleague of mine and me were just surprised at the abundance of life in the water around us. So we spent the whole landing about 2 or 3 hours with our bellies on the pier,
wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a monarch. Yeah.
And we were just admiring all the creatures swimming around, like the sea angels, the jellyfish, the sea butterflies. The sea was just teeming with life. It was amazing.
And I think the surprising thing in all these areas, of course, where we see the abundance of wildlife, whether it be whales, seals, they have to live off something, and they're in their food chain. So seeing the microscopic world, whether it be the sea angels or the phytoplankton, is a very important part of the ecosystem, and something we can bring alive through the science centers and show the importance of the ecosystem. Okay, I'm going to now continue to ask you, Verena, to talk about Iceland, please.
Iceland is an incredible island with
Island,
an island,
yeah.
Sorry.
It's hard for the non-native English speakers, sorry.
Yeah, it is.
And it's an incredible place with an ever-changing but volcanic landscape, and on top of the mountains and glaciers that you encounter in this place, you also have a lot of big rivers flowing and cascading to the sea, like the one that you can see just in your image right now. It has also a cultural history, with the Vikings arriving and around year 870s and settling for the first time in this island during the Norse period. But it also has a very rich wildlife that you can see. We have in particular bird life. We have more than 70 species breeding in Iceland, including the wild-tailed eagle, the Arctic skuas, and of course the very beloved by everyone, the puffins, which breed in many cliffs around Iceland. And I know what you're going to ask next, and that is, what is my favorite memory of Iceland? And it is also related to birds, to the when you go on a small boat and visit these colonies, these cliffs, where you see the coming and going of parents who have a very limited period of time to mate, lay eggs, incubate them, and then rear the chicks. So it's an incredible cacophony of birds coming and going. It's very touching to see when the chicks are there, how they recognize each other. So it's really a great experience to witness a bird colony from close.
Brilliant. And often we get questions about what to bring. And we ask any of our expedition guides, then binoculars, because although we get up close to wildlife, of course, looking through binoculars and being able to see the detail and follow all sorts of wildlife and landscape and look at the geology through binoculars is one of the things. So we always recommend bring binoculars. Also, people ask about clothing. So being able to bring multiple layers is an important part. We supply you with an expedition jacket. We will loan you expedition boots, so you don't have to worry too much about that. In the Arctic, if you are going hiking, then bring in some hiking boots, because the boots we loan you are like rubber boots to keep you dry on nature landings. But waterproof pants, waterproof trousers, important as well for windproofness, but also when we're in the Zodiacs or expedition boats. So lots of layers, as you'd imagine, and then you have the variability. Okay, over to our last destination. I will ask Karen to talk about her beloved Svalbard.
Yeah, since I'm Norwegian, this is home territory. And to your first point there, Tudor, this is where we started. This is 1896. This is where we had our first expedition voyages. And Svalbard is, of course, an archipelago which is around 60,000 1,000 square kilometers with 5 main islands. And we do kind of operate around 4 of them because the 5th island is relatively far off when we do circumnavigations. And some trips we just do Spitsbergen, which is the largest of the islands. Very few people in Svalbard. It's only about 2,500 in Longyearbyen and a few in a research community a little bit further north in Ny-Ålesund. But this is also as far north as we will go. This is on 79 degrees north, and we often cross 80, and sometimes we go further up to the ice edge. A little bit typical from what you see here, maybe not with an island in the background. But the ice here, if you compare Greenland and Northwest Passage when it comes to ice, you have sea ice as the predominant type of ice, which is very exciting as well. And then the glaciers. Again, you can sort of put Alaska times 10 when it comes to glaciers without making Alaska sounding
no
very
rainforest.
No rainforest.
No
rainforest. We cannot boast that in only the boreal shrubs are about 2 millimeters high. That's as far as the forest goes. But you have these phenomenal glaciers, exactly what Verena mentioned, cascading into the sea. Some of them are 5 kilometers long. Sorry, I'm Norwegian, so I'm metric, about 3 miles. So there is a lot of nature. In Svalbard. Yeah, and then you have the wildlife. And the wildlife in Svalbard, every time we do this, I'm kind of afraid of building expectations that can't be met in a sense, because as Tudor mentioned in the beginning, this is wildlife. So it means that they are where they are. And we do not pursue, lure, or disturb wildlife. There are very strict regulations to this. These are endangered species, so we need to be careful. But oh boy, when we do see them and we do it the right way, like this fella who wasn't really very worried about us being there, it's a magical experience when you do it with respect. So expecting to see them up close, I don't think you want to be them that close.
No, but then that is also why you want to take your binoculars with you, which will improve your experience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, fantastic. No, I did. And expect the unexpected is a bit of a catchphrase, but you never know. And the teams on board will, if there are things to see, they will point out those things. So if we do see a bear, there will be an announcement on the ship, regardless of the time. So if you're in the night then we will wake you up to show you that. So to make sure we get the best experience for you. But Karen, what is your favorite memory from all the lots of trips you've done, lots and lots of trips you've done to Svalbard?
I just have to pick one.
You've already picked it.
I already did pick it. Yeah. It's this the sea ice landing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think, so I have to pick one. And this was actually in the Northwest Passage. There was so much ice we couldn't get through. This was with Fromm. And we really couldn't get to where we actually wanted. So plan A was down the drain, plan B was down the drain, and we were sort of coming down the alphabet. And then we saw this beautiful ice just right there. And it just sort of, I remember Captain and me looking at each other, and we're like, all right, this is what we do. We stop here. We just stop here. And then we had the full afternoon and we had 3 different ice flows that we kind of put people on with our team scattered around, and this is the Arctic. So we needed to have rifles on each ice flow, and we had boats going back and forth. It was brilliant. People were really happy too, because they had never expected to be standing in the middle of the Northwest Passage, right in the middle. And we drifted like with about 1 to 2 knots. So we had drifted quite far during that time. We saw that on the radar afterwards. But
the ship had to catch up with you.
I think they came like that.
I know. Yeah, but I think one of those walking on water is a pretty special experience and pretty eerie at all times. And just in case there's any questions about rifles, then in the Arctic our teams are trained to use rifles as the sort of last deterrent, and also to make a lot of noise in terms of polar bear safety. But of course, that's the last thing anybody would ever want to do, but it's a safety angle to, if there was an issue, then we can evacuate you safely back to the ship. Just in terms of, before we go to questions, this has been a real whistle-stop tour of this massive region at the top of the world in the high latitudes. So Jessie has been answering questions as we've been going through, and we've tried to answer some of the pre-questions we had before the webinar started. But of course, the aim here is to give you a little teaser of the Arctic, and also maybe inspire you if you would like to join us on a sailing. Of course, you know us now, so there we have our website, travelhx.com. We also have a price promise and a lowest price guarantee, so don't worry about booking now. If there was a price reduction, then we'll guarantee that lowest price. It's also a time when the flight schedules for next year have come out, so you are able to get a good price for your flights. And also remember the gateway ports of Vancouver, of Reykjavik, of Longyearbyen are also good places to explore and enjoy as well when you travel to these places. For the joy of being able to listen to us, our teams are offering €150, which is our onboard currency as a credit. So if you do book, then please quote Arctic Webinar to our call centers, and they'll give you that credit for when you join us again to either spend in the boutique or on an excursion or in the spa if you're on Amundsen or Nansen. So I'll hand over now to questions and answers. Jessie's been monitoring those, and whilst we're answering some questions, if you happen to not have our telephone numbers and our emails, then you can note those down. And as Lee said at the start, then we will be circulating the recording of this webinar when we're done. Jessie, our question master.
Yes, thank you very much, Tudor. And thank you, Karin and Verena as well. So lots of good questions today. Me and my colleague Olga, we've been trying to get them answered as best we can, as fast as we can. We do have a few really good ones we wanted to make more public, let you guys weigh in on them. And I have a few that I can go ahead and answer as well that everybody seems to be interested in. Good questions that we had is, so we do have the hybrid ships. We're very sustainably minded. We go to these very sensitive locations. How do we handle our waste?
Okay. Shall I take that one?
Yep,
so
you can take that.
Of course, waste comes in different forms. There's human waste, to put it lightly. So on board our ships, we have sewage treatment plants that we process the waste, and then we basically produce, in effect, what is clean water. Actually, we generate our own water through reverse osmosis plants. For the grey water, that is processed into a clean water. And depending on the area, then we can discharge the clean water. The sludge or the slurry we keep on board in holding tanks that we then discharge in an appropriate port. For other areas, we sort of goes back to the sustainability. We source as much things as we can locally. We have banned single-use plastic. So we try and reduce as much waste as possible is in the supply. But then again, we also recycle as much as we can in the ports. So there's different levels of waste. Of course, we all produce waste wherever we go. But yeah, there's elimination at the start, and then through the process, we have a big focus on food waste. So our hotel teams do a very good job of managing the food consumption, making sure you're adequately fed, but that we don't overproduce food in the buffets or meals. So a mix of different things depending on the waste, but we're really real high-minded on the waste.
And if I'm not mistaken, Tudor, we also connect to shore power and port to reduce noise pollution.
Where that's available, particularly in Iceland, we can connect to shore power, but it's where it's available. But all our ships are capable of connecting to shore power.
Okay, and the perennial question: which binoculars do we recommend?
Verena or Karen? Or Verena, maybe you're the.
Verena can take this one.
You're the wildlife queen.
The wildlife queen, thank you. Well, the best amplification in order to avoid eye fatigue is 8 times or 10 times amplification. And in order to be able to follow or to follow without getting arm fatigue, we would recommend between 35 and 40 length of the glasses. So yes, 8 times 35 or 32 or 40 or 10 times 32 or 40 would be the ideal pair of binoculars.
And I think one good sort of tip is, there's optic shops or camera shops usually have quite a range. So being able to go and they're more than happy to try them out. So try before you buy and what's comfortable for you. But as Verena said, the range from 8 or 10 and 32 to to 40.
40.
8 to 32 is what the
8 to 32,
ornithologists are
ornithologists,
actually.
yeah. So
Yes.
they're a good
Our
one to follow.
ornithologists do recommend 8 to 32 because with 10, it gets too shaky when you are moving and you can't see anything because it,
And 40 can be too heavy after a while. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So 8 to 32, 8 times.
We love
Size have some
binoculars.
good ones. Yeah, we do. Size and Swarovski have some really good ones. Good ones, yeah.
All right, thank you. So there is a lot of concern about what to pack. Now, we have packing lists on our website. There's plenty of information online, but from the experts, are there any packing do's and don'ts that you would recommend?
From me, but we can all chip in. For
We
me,
all chip in on this one.
there's a danger of overpacking, but don't worry about underpacking. But as I said, layers and also natural fabrics, so wool, wool thermals, wool top, because if it gets wet, it retains its, not that it will get wet, but it retains its thermal and it also the wicking layers. So there are laundry facilities on the ship, so you can have things cleaned. So you just think about that and different layers, favorite couple of different hats, couple of different pairs of gloves, just to have that variability.
Yeah, and maybe since the jacket you get from us is basically just a shell jacket, bring also a little thicker underlayer, meaning that under your the wool thermal, which is normally quite thin, have either a down puff jacket or a thicker wool sweater. I mean, this panel here are all natural fibers. You have two very vivid knitters here for one.
Not me.
I said two of us.
I know. Yeah.
It's two. So I mean, so we've tried it all, and wool sweaters are just it. But it is the best. But if you don't have that, don't worry. A puff jacket is also very good with a hood as well. So and those are very light packing as well. So I think that's my 2 cents.
And maybe something that you don't wear or not clothing, but which is super important is sun protection, sun cream, sunscreen,
sunscreen,
sunglasses, all of that.
Absolutely. So that's very good, Verena. Actually, this typical.
And of course, and one thing, just when you're on board, of course, as I mentioned, it's informal, so you don't need to pack smart clothing unless you wear what you're comfortable in. It can, when you have the variability from outside to inside, it can feel warm on the ship, but of course it's a constant temperature run on the bigger ships from recovery systems from the engines. But having clothes that you're comfortable on board, and again, comfortable shoes to walk around the ship and be able to also go out on deck. One of the questions that we've been asked again is about the temperatures. Of course, we're going to the Arctic. We're going to areas with a lot of glaciers and ice. So with that, really the variability from around freezing in the summer, but when there's no wind and it's clear skies, it can feel really warm. So you can be in one layer, but when it's cold, then you need those layers. Hence the offer of layers. So it can get below freezing. I was saying during the Arctic night, of course, the sun, we're 24 hours daylight, but the sun does drop and we can get shadows. So we can get below freezing, but it is hovering around
32 Fahrenheit.
32 Fahrenheit. So it's not maybe as cold as you think it might be.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Over to you, Jesse. Sorry, we're talking too much.
We're waffling about.
Yeah.
No worries. All right, so I have 2 more questions I'd like to get through. We have a few more minutes. They're both a little fun. One, the question was asked specifically about Svalbard, but I think it applies to the entire Arctic. Mm-hmm. The majority of our photos are clear blue skies. What sort of weather can we actually expect?
A little bit of both. So meaning that if you're there for a week or 8 days is the cruise that have the lowest number of days, you will have days with fog. You will have, and fog is quite common all over the Arctic, and it comes from naturally low temperatures on the ice caps on the glaciers, meeting warmer temperatures at the sea level. So fog is very common, and I think Verena had a very nice picture of fog. It's actually quite nice to be in manageable fog. We can do a lot of stuff, but within a week, 8 days, 2 to 3 days are normally with sun or partly sun. and then the rest of the time might be cloudy
Overcast.
or misty or sometimes even rainy. What we are seeing with climate change is that we have much more precipitation that we used to have. So that's just a matter. I mean, Longyearbyen is getting way more rain than they used to.
Variable, not all blue skies.
Variable is maybe the word.
It's the short version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The real experience.
Yeah.
Okay. So one more minute. I'm going to squeeze this one in just for me and you, Karen. Because I swear I didn't write this myself. When and where can we see narwhals?
Okay. I'll give you a hint, everyone. I've been in this business now for more than 20 years. I've seen narwhals once. They are the most whale animal almost on the planet. So seeing narwhals, we should almost not talk about them, but I mean, it's so elusive that it's almost fun to just say that, they're there, but it's for us to see them. And I would say that a trip to Greenland and East Greenland is maybe the best chance you have. That's where I saw the one. No, there were a few, but yeah.
Okay.
East Greenland and the sort of Eastern Canadian archipelago.
Correct.
Yes. But
Great.
Super
I think that's all the time we have.
Could I give one comment at the end? Because
Absolutely.
I this thing about expedition cruising, and that word can almost seem a little bit intimidating sometimes. You think you have to be Roald Amundsen or Scott or Shackleton or someone to be able to do this, which is so far from the truth that it comes. So the threshold of doing a voyage like this is not to be a star athlete or massive one that goes to the gym 3 times a week or anything. Not at all. It is for everyone, and I think we pride ourselves. In being able to take people on activities that they might not have done before, but do it in a safe way and maybe introduce you to something that you never thought you would do. 95% of those people who are going into our kayaks have never been in a kayak before. And what they do is that they sit there and they kayak their very first time between icebergs. I mean, how amazing is that? So just for all of you who are listening, do not worry about feeling that you need to be in a certain shape or form or whatever. This is for everyone, and we are trained to take you and make you have this experience in a safe way without feeling that you haven't done what you should have or haven't prepped or whatever. Forget it. This is good. This is good.
Thank you, Karen. That's a very important distinction to make.
Yeah.
It is. And writing on the details of that, there was a question about suitability for children. Just real quick, I'll say in the Arctic, Northern Hemisphere, we do not have an age restriction, maximum or minimum. But if you'd like to find out more about if you have, let's say, an infant or a toddler, how that operates, email us. Let us mention this webinar or my name, Jesse, and I'll make sure to be the one to respond. We can discuss that. And for everyone else whose questions we didn't get to, please reach out to us by email or give us a call, and we're more than happy to answer all of your questions as comprehensively as we possibly can. And hopefully we've garnered as much of your interest as possible through this webinar. And I'm going to hand it over to Lee right now to
I'll just say one thing, but thanks very much, Jesse. Of course, the team are there to help whenever they're there waiting for your call to help and answer your questions. The actual recording from this webinar will be shared tomorrow because we've got to do some processing. So that will be in your inboxes tomorrow by email. So I'd like to thank everyone, and I'll just hand it over to Lee just to finish up.
Yes, thank you all so much. It was a pleasure to be here listening to all of you, and now time for me to get to work and get that recording ready. So wish you all a great day and conclude our webinar. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.